Well, let's begin this hour in Washington, where President Biden and First Lady Jill Biden are welcoming French President Emmanuel Macron and his wife Brigitte at the White House. The two leaders are expected to hold a joint press conference later this morning, and tonight they'll end the visit with an official state dinner. Macron's trip comes amid ongoing efforts by the Biden administration to repair torn relations with France over the fallout from the U.S. Australia submarine deal. CBS News senior White House correspondent Weijia Jiang is following all this from us and joins us from the White House. Good morning, Weijia. So, what key issues can we expect the two leaders to discuss here?
Good morning to both of you and good morning to everybody. There are a lot of issues on the table, although we should point out that the administration says the main purpose of this visit, because it is a state visit, is to really showcase and deepen the relationship between the U.S. and France, because as you mentioned, Vlad, things were a little rocky, a little awkward this time last year because of that submarine deal. Basically, Australia pulled out of a deal with France, costing billions, tens of billions of dollars for the French, and went into an agreement instead with the U.S. and the U.K. Even President Biden said that was clumsy, and there was a lot of fallout from that. And so I think this is an opportunity for these two leaders to really show the world at a really critical time that they are allies, that they are working together on a host of issues. Of course, they will discuss the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. We expect they will talk about Iran and its nuclear ambitions. Trade will be a big issue. And there will also be some sore spots because, the president recently signed the Inflation Reduction Act into law, and that includes subsidies for electric vehicles moving forward. But the catch is those parts have to be manufactured in North America. So again, we expect Macron might bring that up because it will cost his country quite a bit of money too. So even though there is a lot of business to get to, again, as you see right here, today is all about the pomp and circumstance and literally rolling out the red carpet for the French.
Certainly it seemed like Emmanuel Macron at one point was almost like the Trump whisperer, right? Like he knew what yes. Trump liked and he was able to do it. And in a little bit, the Putin whisperer, even though that didn't come out, didn't really make any changes, he was the one that was willing to meet with Vladimir Putin. But it looks like he has a pretty decent personal relationship with President Biden. What's the relationship like between the two men?
That's right. I think they have obviously a mutual respect for each other. And even though there was that pretty major conflict between their two countries last year, they have since worked together to really reinforce their partnership, their allyship with NATO countries as well, leading the charge as those countries decide how to make sure Ukraine is protected and funded and what that means for the rest of the region. The Indo-Pacific is also a really critical area for France, and they have about 8,000 service members stationed there. Of course, President Biden has made that region at the center of his foreign policy because he, recognizes the growing tensions there. And, well, China is located there as well. So they work together a lot on many things, and that is why it's so important for them to really show that to the rest of the world today. But to your point about the whispering, I think that really shows that Macron is very skilled at being a diplomat in addition to being the president. And so I think, this is the capital T event of the year for France and U.S. Because it really highlights the diplomatic relationship. And one thing we'll be watching, guys, is the guest list, because the guest list for the state dinner tonight, I should say, because, it'll really show where the administration is in terms of, who they want to have access to these French officials, what the priorities are, and also who is important to the administration and to President Biden, ranging from, other officials within the administration to deep donors to fellow Democrats. Everybody wants a ticket to this dinner tonight.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you about that, Weijia, because I've always found it interesting that we say that the United States has a special relationship with the United Kingdom, but France is the United States' oldest ally. Our relationship with France stretches back to the very founding of our country, when we were at war with a country that we now have this special relationship with. So I'm really sort of excited to see what this guest list is like, and the who's who of the Washington glitterati that are going to make the scene. What are you hearing?
I'm not hearing much. I mean, that is one thing that is going to be a big reveal tonight, along with, of course, who the first ladies are wearing, what gowns they're wearing. But I think, that's part of the excitement, is watching the guests sort of, roll up and do their step and repeat in a very glamorous setting here at the White House to see, who's coming. You're seeing images now from the preview of the dinner. The executive chefs and pastry chefs showed the American public what they had been preparing. The First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden, actually worked very intimately with them to curate the menu, which is very thoughtful. It includes cheeses, a cheese plate, all sourced from places in the United States. Of course, when we think of cheese, we do think of France, because obviously they have, such a plethora of cheeses and are famous for them. But she wanted to also showcase some of the different farmers here in America as well. They're having Maine lobster. They're having a beef course. So it is really fascinating to see all the little details that really celebrate both of these countries. And to your earlier point, too, about being the Trump whisperer, President Macron was actually the first guest of President Trump as well for his first state dinner. And you might remember at that time that the president, before a photo op, the former president fixed his hair, which was just a very memorable moment. And he said, "You're perfect, so you have to look perfect." And so this is a meeting for the rest of the day, as you're seeing a schedule. Basically, they will have an arrival ceremony along with the First Ladies here. You can hear the U.S. Air Force Band. There are also rifle guards from every branch of the U.S. military. And again, this is all about the celebration and making the French feel welcome, according to administration officials. After that, the two leaders, Presidents Biden and Macron, will have a bilateral meeting and then host a press conference. Our own Ed O'Keefe will be there in the room, hoping to ask some questions, although in this setting, it's what we call a 2-by-2, which means the President of the United States will call on two journalists, as will Macron. And so it's not one of those press conferences where, if you raise your hand or if he has a list, you might get a question, because 10 to 12 people get a question. So let's cross our fingers for Ed. He'll be in there either way. And then tonight, of course, is the big state dinner that we have been talking about. So it is a full day, a gorgeous day here in Washington. And there are American and French flags pretty much on every corner near the White House that you can see. And right here you're seeing as well, not only is the White House dressed up for Christmas, but also there are, French flags and bunting here as well.
All right. Well, lovely to see the sunshine compared to yesterday.
Yes.
Of course, we're going to continue to cover all the goings on in Washington. As soon as the first family of France arrives at the White House, we'll go live there. Weijia, thank you very much.
You're welcome.